Welcome to the Bentley Rare Book Museum's virtual Coffee with a Curator program. This is our last program of the semester. So I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you who attended when you could. For some of you all, that was every week. So thank you so much for being such a big supporter. I hope you've enjoyed the suite of programs this semester. So again, we're not going to meet for the rest of the year, but we will resume next semester. So in January, I will say the frequency is going to change and I will send an email about that. But we are still going to resume in January, most likely the week of Martin Luther King Day, kind of sometime that week. So I will absolutely, send you a message about that. And if some of you have had friends that have been interested in joining. So we're so happy that you're spreading the word. If it's your first time today, welcome. I hope that today is a great day for you and that you enjoyed today's program and that you are encouraged to spend time with us again next semester. So today is going to be really, really fun. We are going to be talking to Camilla. And Camilla, do you want to raise your hand just for anybody who didn't see you before? Camilla is one of our honor students here at Kennesaw State University. That's what we do at MARP. We love to engage our students, make sure they get involved, and they do some incredible research for us. So Camilla is going to talk about her research regarding the Bentley Rare Book Museum's collection of rare and historic cookbooks, specifically wartime cookbooks. But before we do that, I'm going to do a cooking demo from one of our awesome World War II cookbooks. And so that's going to be fun. So if you want to cook along with me, that's fine. If you've already cooked the recipe or anything, please just, please do share your experience. But before we do anything, we are going to have our Where's Andrew segment. So Andrew, can you raise your hand for those who are new? Okay, great. There's Andrew. So every week he changes his background to a bookish place that has to do with the theme for the day. I really like this one. It looks gorgeous. So Andrew, is there anything you want to tell us before we start guessing where you are?
I am inside a house, but you may have figured that out by now. Of course, I themed it to Christmas, and on this table next to me there are, if I can get my finger right, a couple of books, which is sort of a book connection.
Ooh. Well, this is beautifully decorated. I feel that we might need to know a little bit about the, I don't know, maybe the region or the country that you're in, because this could be Europe or the United States or.
This is the United States.
Okay. I'm going to guess New England because New England always has pretty things.
Yes. I am in New England.
Okay, Boston.
No. And I will throw out Richard Morris Hunt. No explanation behind it. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Okay. So you're in a house of someone that's famous.
The family is famous. They aren't the most well-known person of the family, but still quite well known.
Is the family of a book collecting family, or are there famous libraries named after the family?
They don't have any famous libraries. They're not known for their book collecting, but they do have a university.
Do they have anything to do with cooking?
No.
Okay.
Think of like naval ranks, if that helps. You have captain, you have admiral, and in between that is
Commodore. Commodore.
So who's known as Commodore?
Who's Commodore? Famous Commodore.
I can only think of Commodore Perry.
It's not him.
I can only think of the Commodore's musical group, so I'm of no use whatsoever.
Commodore Dewey?
No. And he wasn't a real Commodore, he just had this title.
Oh. The fake
I'd like to guess the Commodore from Popeye because he wasn't a real Commodore either. Popeye's father.
I somehow sincerely doubt Popeye's father could afford all this.
I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
Never know.
Is
Is
it
it pro-
Vanderbilt? Cornelius Vanderbilt?
It is Commodore Vanderbilt. It is the Vanderbilt family. Now, does anyone know which house? Because there are
Is
several.
it
Several.
Newport?
It is one of the Newport ones.
Oh, okay. Newport.
I think you may have to tell us. I wish I had guessed Vanderbilt. That makes so much sense, but oh well, I missed that one. I think you might have to tell us.
This is Mabel House. That was Alva Vanderbilt's house.
Say that one more time.
It's very big. It's called Mabel House, or Mabel Hill. Let me check my handout. Mabel House. It is, as you might guess, the outside is entirely made of marble, and it's not actually the largest Vanderbilt mansion in Newport, which is the Breakers. But it's still quite large and very, very expensive.
Wow.
And it's actually a house museum now.
Very cool. Oh gosh, thank you so much, Andrew. Yeah, I just wish I had guessed Vanderbilt, but that's great. Thank you so much. And as usual, Andrew prepared a handout for us, so that's in the chat now. You can download that.
So I wonder where the marble came from. Could it be from our beloved Georgia Marble Company?
Oh, good point.
I don't actually know.
Ellen?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? We'll have to kind of look into that, especially we got to see when the house was built and everything. Now that would be the coolest connection if that marble is Georgia marble. That would be awesome.
Helen, let's just pull out the entire unprocessed collection and go through it one picture at a time. It won't take us very long.
Sure, yeah, we can do that this afternoon.
We'll work on that. That's so exciting. Thank you again, Andrew. What a great one. And again, a family that we all have heard of. So that's perfect. And that is a beautiful space. I definitely want to go there and see that during the holidays.
And I am looking up where the Bible came from.
Oh, you're looking it up?
I'm looking it up.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. Awesome. Andrew will take care of that. Okay, so thank you again, Andrew. And now we are going to move on to our cooking demo. So let's see, can everyone still hear and see me? Okay, great, awesome. So I don't want to talk, too much about the cookbook that we are going to be one of the cookbooks that we're going to be baking out of today, because Camilla is going to talk about that. But it is called Coupon Cookery and published in 1943, and it is written by or attributed to Prudence Penny. So Prudence Penny, I think, was kind of like a recurring column, like Dear Abby. And so Prudence Penny helped American families get through the war and eat well and remain creative with their eating, even by saving money and by following rationing guidelines. So as we all know, the holiday season calls for cookies. I think probably no matter what holiday you celebrate, I think we all have a chance to enjoy a cookie or two. So today we're going to travel back to 1943 America during the height of rationing mandates to learn about how Americans on the home front baked delicious cookies while using minimal ingredients and managing the point system that they were on, and which rationed various goods like sugar. So this recipe is for peanut crisps, as you saw from the email. So for those who don't like peanuts, one of our dietitians actually here at KSU helped me figure out you can use sunflower seeds if you don't like peanuts, or even plain roasted chickpeas work well, just crushed up. So that's an option too if you have an allergy or don't like them. So I want to just say this recipe, again, as you saw from the email, it does contain sugar. And I know that can seem odd considering, oh, we thought sugar was being rationed. Well, I want to kind of contextualize this and help you understand it. So although sugar was rationed, that meant that, they just had to kind of minimize and equalize how much American families were using. So people were allowed to buy sugar. They were allowed to get it. Based on my research, I believe in 1942, the overall rule was that families could consume 2 pounds of sugar per month. Now, I think that's only about 4 cups or so. So that my math could be wrong, but I think it's about 4 cups. So this recipe takes 1 cup of sugar. So that's going to take a good amount of your, it's going to take a good amount of your sugar allocation for that month. However, if for something like a holiday, perhaps that would be something that a family would choose to do. And also it's a sweet treat that you can kind of, it spreads quite a bit. The recipe makes about 36 cookies. So if you make them small. So there's plenty of sweet treats to go around. This is probably a good use of your sugar ration. And as the coupon cookery recipe says, these cookies are quick as a wink to make and crunchy good to eat. So we're gonna, if you will just, if you want to make, I'm gonna make them on camera and we're gonna see how these turn out. Andrew, actually, his family already made them. And Andrew, can you show your plate? You see? So they already made them. And he said, they're not half bad.
Not half bad, but I won't say half good either. It's like the Pliny peanut guy and the Pillsbury Doughboy had a child.
That's what we're going for. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna start with just a big bowl. And I got this, these peanuts here. This is actually 1 pound. It calls for 1 pound of peanuts. And it says to put it into a food chopper. So I decided that I would keep it simple. So I just put all the peanuts in this bag and I just crushed them kind of with a glass and crushed them with something. So I just kind of chopped them up that way. So I'm going to dump the whole pound of peanuts into my bowl. Some of them got more crushed than others, but that's okay. I'm making this in a way that I really like peanuts. So if I bite into a whole peanut during my cookie, I'm happy. So that's fine with me. All right. So the next thing that we need to do for this recipe is we need to add flour, and it called for only 1 tablespoon of flour. So I put that in here. All I had in my house was some wheat flour. So this is going to have to do. I hope this won't mess anything up. So I'm going to put this in here. Okay, so the flour is in. Next thing, we need to combine the sugar and eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and see, and it says we need well-beaten eggs. So I tried to keep my eggs out for a little while because Ina Garden always says that room temperature eggs are best for baking. So I do whatever Ina Garden says. So I'm gonna all right, so I got both my eggs cracked. So excuse the noise, but I'm gonna beat them up a little bit. That's what we're supposed to do. Okay. So I'm gonna see if I can tilt the camera so you can see. So right now I just got the peanuts and the flour. So now I'm gonna add the well-beaten eggs to the mixture. And then this is where our gold comes in, our precious gold that we've been rationing. Our beautiful 1 cup of sugar that we must take care of, and we hope it tastes good in these cookies because we don't have that much. So I'm going to put the sugar in. And I think that is about it. Now it says to beat it thoroughly. I felt like I don't think I need to beat this necessarily. Andrew, did y'all do actual beating?
We mixed it up with a mix too. And the only other thing we did different is we used a candy chopper and chopped up the peanuts so it's like finer grain.
To finer grain, okay. Yeah, I like mine really chunky. I'm the person that buys like extra chunky peanut butter at the store. So I don't know. I'm gonna see what happens when I do this. They may not form correctly, but let's see. We'll see what happens. So mine are gonna look very different than Andrew's because again, these are kind of more.
Hey.
So this is what my mixture is starting to look like. It just looks like a bunch of peanuts that are stuck together, which is kind of what I want. Camilla, can you tell us when you made them, what did you do? Did you use a mixer or did you use a spoon? Did you chop up the peanuts really finely? Tell us how you did it, because Camilla already made them and I was able to advertise her beautiful picture on Facebook.
So I think I reached a fine medium between you and Andrew. They're not finely chopped. They're kind of like the peanuts you find in crunchy peanut butter is where I had it. And I didn't use a mixer either. I just mixed everything up with a spoon. And it appears to have come out very different from Andrew's, but I found mine very tasty as well. So like he said, not the best thing in the world, but when you're trying to make do on a ration, not the worst thing you could be eating either.
So I have a question for Camilla, and in your research, I don't know much about peanuts. I know in the South, I'm not native to the South, so I don't know all the intricacies of, but you know, you see boiled peanuts where obviously this recipe calls for roasted peanuts. I'm assuming like it wouldn't work if they were boiled. I don't think at all.
Yeah,
So was it
called for like Spanish, the salted Spanish peanuts?
Salted Spanish peanuts? Okay, does anybody, is that different from Georgia peanuts? Does anybody know?
I don't know. I cheated and just used cocktail peanuts from the store.
I use Virginia peanuts, got to keep it all American.
We used to have Cowboy South.
I was just curious at that time, you know, during the war, like, I don't know much about peanut production, like where peanuts, you know, were they from peanut plantations here? Or does anybody know? I don't know anything about history of peanuts.
Nope.
Nope.
You know, I don't know. And I actually don't know what makes, I just don't know, like, I don't think I've ever eaten a Spanish peanut. So yeah, I don't know why it even specifically called for that, or if that would be easier or harder for people to get. So who knows? That's a good question, Tamara, though. Very good question. So I thought peanuts had they have their roots in, I thought, Africa, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Am I wrong about that? I don't remember. All right, so I am kind of just making my little cookies that are, it kind of looks almost like, this looks really good to me. I think some people may not.
Can I hop in real quick?
Yeah.
I think Tamika was looking up peanut information just the same time I was.
Oh.
But just because they're called Spanish peanuts, they're still produced in the US. It says US peanuts fall into 4 basic types: runner, Virginia, Spanish, and Valencia. So just because they're called those, that's maybe where they originated, but that's not where they are made now.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you, Maggie.
And I found one thing that said that they are much sweeter than regular peanuts, which might help with cookies.
With the cookies. Okay, that makes sense. I can see why they said that then. Thank you. Okay, y'all. So I have got my cookies look a lot like peanuts that are kind of been put together. They look so good to me, but look very different than Andrew's. I am very excited. So I'm going to put these in a 350-degree oven for about 12 minutes, as the recipe says. And during that time, Camilla is going to do her presentation. And then by the time she's done, I will let y'all know what I think of my cookies. So Camilla, you should have screen sharing abilities. So I think we should be good to go. Let me know if, and if y'all don't mind muting yourselves while Camilla presents, and then feel free to add questions for her in the chat. And then when she's done, if you want to unmute yourself, we can we'll have our discussion again, but just so that she can concentrate. All right.
Are you guys able to see the PowerPoint?
We do. We don't see it in the kind of full view yet.
Full view?
Yeah.
Okay, how about now?
Now we see that. Perfect.
Okay, so while we're waiting for the cookies to be done, I'll keep you all entertained and provide a little context for where we got this recipe. So last spring, I worked on identifying and researching cookbooks for the Bentley's collections that were wartime cookery. And I'm very excited to announce that 2 of those are now part of the Bentley's collections. We have Foods That Will Win the War and How to Cook Them from World War I, and Coupon Cookery from World War II, where we got the peanut crisp recipe. So I will tell you a bit about the research I have done on these cookbooks. So for a little context, there was food rationing during World War I, but it wasn't quite the same as World War II. And food rationing was done under the US Food Administration, which was an emergency wartime power. And that was run by future President Herbert Hoover. And what the focus was on substitution, because the US wanted to send foods such as wheat flour, red meat, and sugar over to our allies and the citizens in Europe to help them during the wartime crisis. And so what they wanted Americans to do was eat less of those foods. So they encouraged Americans to eat, in addition to less wheat flour, they encouraged you to put corn flour, barley, and rice flour in your breads. Instead of red meat, there was a push towards other types of meat, such as fish, and then things such as cheese and soybeans and peanut butter as sources of protein. And instead of sugar, they encouraged corn syrup, not the high fructose kind, but yet corn syrup and molasses. And this was a voluntary program, but because it was voluntary, they bombarded you with propaganda instead to make sure that you did it. And about 14 million people signed a pledge that they would substitute their foods. And even though the government wasn't watching, they kind of made sure your neighbors were watching and making sure that you were eating the right things and taking control over your meatless days and not eating meat on those days. And so that's the environment that we see Foods That Will Win the War and How to Cook Them. And cookbooks were a form of propaganda. And it's, in fact, this cookbook seems to be one of the more prominent pieces of propaganda from the period. And in fact, Foods That Will Win the War takes its name from the US Food Administration slogan, which was "Food Will Win the War." And it was written by C. Houston Gudis and Alberta Gudis. And this was a pretty powerful food couple, husband and wife. They ran the Forecast magazine, which was a food magazine. And they also had a cooking school called the School of Modern Cookery. And at that school, they taught women for free how to cook recipes and taught them home economics and nutritional science. And then those recipes would be put in the forecast. So they had a pretty prominent food empire. And they partnered with the US Food Administration in early 1918 to create this cookbook, which is divided into sections discussing how to save meat, how to save wheat, and how to save sugar and food generally. And each chapter begins with explaining why the government wants you to save those foods, often focusing on the amount of waste that Americans have, the amount of bread waste, and how after they guilt trip you, they then tell you how to adapt to the changes they want you to have. And so once again, for the bread section, they focus on things like how to make bread with the other types of flours they want you to use, how to use barley and rice in your breads as well. And then, of course, they teach you some recipes to use your substitutions wisely and be nutritious at the same time. And I created a blog post for this, and I focused on Thanksgiving foods. And in that post, I had some savory foods such as eggless cornbread and macaroni with cheese. But because we're more into the holiday season, I have decided to show you guys some of the sweet stuff from that selection. So at the top of the screen, you can see the mincemeat pie filling with the cranberries, raisins, and a whole cup of corn syrup. And then there's a pumpkin pie filling with 2 cups of pumpkin, and then again, a whole cup of corn syrup. And an interesting take on pumpkin pie is that they would cover it in a meringue, which was also interesting because I haven't seen meringue made with corn syrup either. So pumpkin pie with meringue and a whole lot of corn syrup. And while you might be making your list of things to bake this holiday season, I doubt the wheatless, eggless, butterless, milkless, sugarless cake is on the top of it, but you have to admit it checks off a lot of marks on the government's rationing list. So these are some of the sweet things that might have been tasty around Thanksgiving, but because we're all good friends here at Coffee with the Curator, I'm also going to show you some Christmas recipes from Foods That Will Win the War. So we got our traditional figgy pudding in true World War I fashion. We got molasses in here, not just corn syrup, and it's a fairly straightforward fig pudding recipe. And then we have gingerbread, sour milk gingerbread, making do with what you had, being able to use up what you had. And you can note that instead of wheat flour, they had whole wheat flour, which was more acceptable as a substitution rather than wheat flour. So these are some of the Christmassy recipes from World War I, and now we'll move on to World War II and coupon cookery.
Camilla,
Yeah.
before we do that, Adina had a great question asking if in your research, did you find any evidence that the US actually sent food items to Europe?
Yes, the US did, and it wasn't so much substitution that allowed us to send things over. It was the fact that we had increased agricultural production during the war. We did substitute and were able to send things over, but it's the glory of farmers that really helped us. Were there any other World War I questions?
I think that is it for right now. So you can move on to World War II.
All right, World War II, they had mandatory rationing, so it was a very different way of approaching food during the war. And as you can see from these images, these are from Coupon Cookery. There was still a reasonable amount of propaganda. And during World War II, food rationing was under the Office of Price Administration, and their rationing had a point coupon system. So how this point system worked was that each month, every American citizen would receive a war ration book. And you can see at the bottom of the screen that she has one. And in the ration book, there would be stamps or coupons. We'll call them coupons for now. And those came in red and blue. The red ones applied to meat and dairy products, and the blue ones applied to canned foods. And each of these colored coupons would have a point attached to them. So you can see that the one that she's trying to stretch, it had 2 points. And so they came kind of like paper money in terms of the amount of points that they had on them. And so when you went to the store and tried to buy a rationed item, not only would you have to present the amount of money to be able to buy that item, you would have to have the correct amount of points via your coupons to buy it. And this could become tricky because much like prices, coupon points did change. So you would have to keep track of how many points an item cost. And in addition, you would have to keep track of how many coupons you had, because some of them expired monthly, and then other ones came into effect weekly and expired weekly. So there are a lot of things to have to keep track of in order to buy foods that you would have just had to have presented money before. But help wasn't too far away, because cookbooks like Coupon Cookery and all its red, white, and blue glory were here to help American citizens work through the point system. And as you can see, it has a handy changeable table of point values. And it was written by Prudence Penny. I'll put her in air quotes because Prudence Penny was not just one person, but dozens. Prudence Penny was the alias for food columnists across the country that were published in Hearst newspapers. And a Hearst newspaper is one published by the company that was run by media mogul William Randolph Hearst. He began his newspaper publishing empire in 1887, and with one newspaper, and by 1920s he had 28 newspapers across the country. And it's in the 1920s that Prudence Penny first appears as the columnist across the country. And so we can see that there would have been a sizable audience for people knowing who Prudence Penny was, because the Hearst newspapers had a readership of 1 in 4 Americans. And so in this Coupon Cookery, there was not just recipes and tips and tricks about the point system, but also charts. And so here are a couple of those charts. So on the left, you can see coupon expiration dates. So you could keep track of what food or what they would apply to, and then the type of coupon, and then their dates that they would become valid and expire. And on the right, you can see what she calls the handy point chart for processed foods. And you can see that you can put in the point value and then it's changing point values over time, but it applies to lots of foods. And we can just see here things like applesauce, fruit cocktail, figs, which might come up later, and cranberries. But please know that this handy chart goes on for pages and pages and pages and covers things from baby food to beefsteak. So it wasn't just only processed food, but other types of foods as well. So these were the things that Coupon Cookery was here to help citizens through this relatively difficult rationing system. And so now that we know a little bit about the system, and this cookbook came out in 1943, 2 years into the war, let's talk about Christmas during 1943. The big hit of the year was Bing Crosby's I'll Be Home for Christmas, which had the nostalgia for soldiers wanting to be home for the season. And many people had at least one loved one far away overseas. Gifts were different during the war in 1943. Due to the shift to military manufacturing, there just wasn't the amount of consumer goods on the market, but there were still toys available for the little ones. Dolls and military themed toys are popular, but for the adults in your life, the government wants you to know that war bonds were a great present. And food-wise, things were a bit different because sugar, butter, and coffee were among the first things to become rationed in 1942 and into early 1943. So by the time of Christmas 1943, those were rationed. And Mr. JoyEllen has already told us about the sugar situation, that many people had significantly less access to sugar, but people also knew that people love sugar and sweet treats. And to a certain extent, desserts were seen as a morale booster. And in the recipes that follow, you'll see the people's needs to continue to have sweet things for people on the home front, as well as make them nutritious so that people can continue their war defense jobs. And so to satisfy the sweet tooth is the chapter in Coupon Cookery in which all the good stuff is placed. So these are 2 cake recipes, and you can see here that both of them have honey in them, because like World War I, there was still an element of sugar substitution in order to make things sweet. And instead of molasses and corn syrup all the time, we can see that they have also adapted to honey. And so the first one is a lightning spiced coffee cake with a cinnamon honey top. And then the bottom one I thought was interesting. I haven't really had honey and chocolate together, but I feel like that might be an interesting cake to try, especially during World War II. And then we won't go until we get some. There were, once again, more figgy puddings. Government mandatory rationing can't keep you away from that holiday treat. And you can see that these were a bit fancier than the World War I one, because this one is a steamed ginger fig pudding. And you can see that this one has no sugar at all, but rather you use molasses. And then on the thrifty pudding, we can see that there's carrots and raisins and nuts. And at the penny tip at the bottom, sugar and spice and carrots too, a bit of everything, including vitamin A. So once again, it might be sweet and tasty, but you're also going to get some nutritional value out of this. And one thing that was interesting about Coupon Cookery is that there really were no cookie recipes in here. The peanut crisp, and then there was a wafer recipe, and then these carrot honey cookies were about as far as they went in terms of cookie recipes. But this one's a little bit involved, but overall it sounds like it would be a very tasty, almost carrot cake-like cookie. And I like the penny tip at the bottom, a neat camouflage for carrots, spicy and nice. So these were the types of recipes that you would see in Coupon Cookery, especially for the Christmas season. And all this information will be always available on the blogs on the Bentley's website. And the Christmas ones will be coming soon, so you guys actually have gotten a sneak peek of the Christmas ones. But the blogs are not the only thing that Mr. JoyEllen and I have been doing with the cookery materials of the Bentley this semester. We also partnered with the Health Promotion and Wellness Department, and we did a cooking demonstration of the best fritters recipe from the English housewife from 1631. And on the left, you can see our fritters, which were basically apple slices covered in funnel cake batter and then fried. And in the middle, you can see the Health Promotion and Wellness Department doing a great job recreating that recipe. And on the left, you can see the dietitian from Health Promotion and Wellness, Trang Pam, and she is dressed in complete historically accurate costume, which was amazing to see. And then Miss JoyEllen and I as well, with the apple fritters in the background and the main event itself, the English housewife. So this was a very fun event, and I'm glad that we were able to do it. And now here is the peanut crisp recipe from Coupon Cookery, and those were the ones that I made, and it should be about time for Miss JoyEllen's cookies to be done. So we'll pretty soon get to know what those tasted like. And are we there yet, Miss JoyEllen?
We are there. Camilla,
Okay.
thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for setting me up. Y'all, my cookies look so good. I just want to, let me see if I can, the pan is still a little hot, so I'm gonna try not to drop it while I show you on camera. Okay. Look at my cookies.
Those look really good.
Thank you. I am very excited to eat them. They've had a couple minutes to cool. So let me see if I can, hopefully this one won't break when I try to. They're a little sticky to the parchment paper. So let me try to get them from there. Let me see. Okay. Come on. So note to self, so maybe I should have sprayed the parchment paper a little bit because it's a little sticky. But I got it. Oh. So this is my cookie. Looks yummy. All right, let me see how this tastes. I like it, but I really like peanuts. It definitely tastes like sweet peanuts. That's what it tastes like. I really like this actually, but that's me. Definitely, if you don't like peanuts or you're only like lukewarm with peanuts, you might want to use something else. But like Andrew said, not half bad. It's not a cookie in the traditional sense, but it's good though. And I imagine if you haven't had a lot of sweets in a while, this would just taste heavenly. I recommend it.
Is it really soft and chewy right now that you got it out of the oven?
Mine is very soft and chewy, which is nice. Very emphasis on the chewy.
About if they last a day, they'll get closer to peanut ginger snaps in terms of the
so
crunchiness,
really
hardness. Yeah,
okay.
So watch your teeth a little bit.
Sounds good. Good to know. So maybe these better to eat right out of the oven, or at least warm them up if you have them sitting out for a while. But yes, and yeah, Tamar, they do smell quite good in the house. They have a really nice smell. We need to, I know, I wish I could like have a feature where you could smell. They actually smell really good. So yeah, oh, how fun. Yeah, they are definitely crispy, and right now they're chewy, but I can see they'll become probably pretty chewy. I mean, probably pretty crispy at some point. That is exciting. Also, I looked up about the true origin of peanuts. I had gotten them mixed up with yams. So yams are from Africa and peanuts are from South America. I had a student assistant write about origins of food, and I got those two. She wrote about those two in a post, and I got them mixed up. So just so we all know, they are native to South America, or at least the Western Hemisphere generally. Awesome. Okay. And just so that y'all know, I know that you are, you've seen Camilla. If you've been attending, you know her, kind of, you feel like you know her already. But just if you had forgotten, she is a senior history major and minors in public history and German studies. And she loves cookbooks and has had a lifelong interest in them. So Camilla has over 60 cookbooks, including a 1904 edition of the White House Cookbook And her very first cookbook was Barbie, Fun to Cook. So I love that. So she's been collecting for a while, really enjoys learning about food and military history. So hence this has been perfect for her. She's done a lot with the Bentley. So now as we kind of come to a close, after just a semester of wonderful programs, and yes, great job, Camilla. Round of applause, and thank you, Tamika, for putting that in the chat. Round of applause for Camilla, and round of applause for just all the work you've done this semester. Again, Camilla is one of our public history students here at KSU, so we are just so impressed by the work that she's been doing. But Camilla, if you want to start us off and tell us, what is your favorite holiday cookie? Because Camilla, you cooked, you research cookbooks, you bake, and you made peanut crisp. I don't know if they made the list, but what's your favorite?
So in the house that I grew up in, it was a bit older and we had the original oven and it was very temperamental and it had a vendetta against cookies. So we didn't really make a lot of cookies in the oven. So what we would do is we would make no bake cookies and candies. And one of my favorites was almond bark cookies. So how those work is that you take the almond bark candy melt and you melt that up, put some peanut butter in, and then you have crushed up pretzels, miniature marshmallows, Captain Crunch, and peanuts. Mix that all up and then you wait for it to cool, and it makes a very interesting cookie, very sweet and salty and crunchy. And I've seen it on the internet referred to as one of those very many different types of Christmas cookie holiday cracks. So it's that tasty.
That is awesome. That sounds really good. And what a great story to go along with it. So that's kind of what you consider your favorite holiday cookie. I love that. If anyone else has opinions, please do share.
We always make,
Go ahead, Andrew.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to tell briefly about your use of cereal in cookies. So my stepmother used to do that, and they live in Southern California. So a lot of times the cereal flakes would get a little soggy because of humidity every now and then, and or just stale. And it was still good enough to put in a cookie, but they live in a house that has a couple of balconies. And one year we made a batch of leftover cereal cookies. And they were so bad that we ended up calling them dog drop cookies because we would drop them off the upper balcony to the dog below. The dog enjoyed them very much, but they were not very good. So yeah, sometimes the cereal doesn't work very well. Anyway, that's my story.
Dog drop cookies.
Dog drop cookies sounds
That is
like something a little different.
Oh, Maggie. That's funny. Oh, that's a great story. Andrew, what's your story?
We always make gingerbread each year, but usually our Christmas desserts are a bit different. Last year we made Grinch popcorn, which was like the green candy melts. You took popcorn and you melted green candy melts, and drizzled it all over, and you threw in M&Ms, the red and white ones, looked like the Grinch, and it looked amazing, but was very, very sticky. I was sticky for days.
Yeah.
Only other weird Christmas story is one time we decided to make this Santa. It's bread in the shape of Santa, pretty straightforward, but it ended horribly. It's still like a legendary family event because remember in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, that one guy that had the octopus face? It looked like that. And it had this vaguely red hat. We tried dyeing it, but it didn't really work well. It had these incredibly just dark eyes that just stared back at you.
Oh no.
It was the worst thing. We didn't even eat it. It would just look too bad. And we still have pictures of it. We still laugh about it each year. It was just horrific.
Well, at least you got a good story out of it. Now, I hope that you and Daniel weren't too young to where that made you scared of Santa.
Oh no, just the Santa bread.
just that bread. That is an awesome holiday story. I love that. Now, I'm going to put somebody on the spot. Stephanie, I know you must have a favorite holiday cookie. Stephanie, can you please share with us?
So I would say my favorite holiday cookie is more of a pastry. It's rugala, which is a Jewish or Yiddish pastry that comes out of, I think it originated in Poland. The word rugala actually is Yiddish for little twists. It's a cream cheese pastry that's rolled with usually fruit, either apricot or orange. I make peach. I also do Nutella. And then you sprinkle a mixture of nuts, usually walnuts, dried fruit. You can use cherries or cranberries or raisins or currants, and then cinnamon and sugar, and then it's rolled up. It's my youngest daughter's favorite. I only make them during the holidays because it's also my favorite. I would just eat them till I got sick. So I started making them about 15 years ago. I ate them when I was younger in New York. Growing up, all the bakeries in my area had them. But I didn't eat them again till years later, where I found a recipe for them and remembered them and have been making them ever since. So it's a rolled cream cheese pastry that's just absolutely wonderful.
Oh my gosh, Stephanie, I knew you'd have something to say. Stephanie has, and Miss Sandy said, any cookie my daughter Stephanie makes is my favorite. So yes, I agree, Miss Sandy. That is true. Sorry, that was just my timer. My second batch of cookies is done. Now, I will say about rugala, Stephanie, if ever you're making it and you have extra and you want to give me some, that would be great, because my dad loves it.
Really?
I think, well, my parents he grew up in like New Jersey, and I think he lived around.
Yeah, then he would have eaten them growing up. Yes.
Yeah, so he did. But the problem is I've only had the kind from Costco. So
They're not the same. I mean, they're okay. They're fine. I actually had some. I went to the Jewish Quarter in Paris when I was there many, many years ago, and they had some that were like cat head size. Then they're kind of like the little sister to babka, if you know what babka is, which is a yeasted rolled dough, but they're kind of cousins because they're related in their filling and their origins like that. But yes, I do Christmas boxes for my neighbors and stuff every year. And I actually made rugala dough last night. So I'll see if I can get you some.
Note to self, move next to Stephanie. Okay, done. Yay, well, thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else have a, and if you put yours in the chat, I'm going to try to see if I can see. I think I got all the chat comments. If anyone else has a favorite cookie that they want to share, you don't have to. If anyone else does, I want to give everybody a chance to share.
I did find a picture of a Santa bread.
Oh, please share it with us.
Yes. It looked worse in person.
What is inside of his eyes? Is it hollow?
It was black dye.
Oh, black.
Yeah.
His eyes are hollow, looking into your soul.
Yes. I mean, this Santa possesses you. It's horrific.
I applaud the attempt, but yeah, that poor Santa.
I love his little nose, though.
Yeah, that's all we play, but turned out well. And again, we didn't even eat it. We didn't try it. We just decided to be done with it before it started haunting us.
That is so funny. Oh my gosh. Thank you for digging up that picture. That's a great one. And Adina added a recipe for warm sticky figgy pudding. That looks yummy. So Adina, I have to ask, is it now a tradition?
So I think we're going to make it again this year. Before the pandemic, generally, we would always travel back to New Jersey for the holidays and would eat a lot of Christmas cookies made by other people, but didn't really do anything ourselves. And the first year we ever didn't travel was when my daughter was born 5 years ago, and we made this recipe, and it was really fun, but like kind of involved. But I think we're going to do it again this year. So yeah, I don't know if it's a tradition because it does take a fair amount of work for these little ramekins, but it is super delicious. And I always wanted to eat figgy pudding because you hear about it in so many stories. So this at least was a fun recipe for it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, I hope y'all have able to make it again. Yeah, sometimes I've noticed that with some of these recipes are so yummy, but they are quite involved. And so it's like, only for the holidays, we're gonna do that. Wonderful. Well, I'll say that my favorite, I think, holiday cookie is I love gingerbread and I love ginger crinkles. Is it just me? And maybe Stephanie knows why, but I mean, why are they not called molasses cookies or molasses crinkles? Because that's the main ingredient, right? I mean, the ginger, I feel like isn't, I don't know.
That I'm not sure. Maybe it's because the ginger is a sharper flavor than the molasses is. Molasses is more in the background. So
Maybe that's what it is. Because I've noticed, I'm like, oh, I put so much molasses in these things, but you know, but the ginger gets the name. But whatever reason, I love it. So those are my favorite.
I can actually explain that one. Gingerbread did not have molasses in it originally. It comes from a monk named Gregory of Armenia of the 10th century who brought it to France. And it only got the molasses part once it came to America.
Andrew, I don't know why you knew that, but that was great. Thank you.
I was about to say, I love how he knows absolutely everything.
If it also helps, the first gingerbread men were made by Elizabeth I. They were of dignitaries who came to visit.
Oh, wait, now I do that. I saw that on a History Channel show or something.
I can't tell if it was like a power move, like she's biting their heads off. I can't figure out why she did it, but I guess we can thank her for it. So that's what counts.
Yeah, I'm grateful for it because I sure do love those. Very cool.
JoyEllen, but before Andrew told that story, I was actually going to tell you, my mother used to make this cake that we just loved. It was called spice cake. She always made it around the holidays. And she didn't ever tell us until my brother, sister, and I were grown that it had prunes in it, that the main ingredient was prunes. So she called it spice cake in order to get us to eat it and to try it, which worked perfectly, because we probably wouldn't have eaten it if we'd known it had prunes in it.
That's a veteran move.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. Yeah, because I have a spice cake recipe that I make, and it's actually applesauce spice cake. So there's applesauce. I've never eaten one with prunes in it, but you didn't taste the prunes?
I didn't know any better, I guess.
You didn't know? Yeah. That's awesome, because yeah, I'm not a big prune person, but if someone told me it was spice cake, I would definitely eat it and probably never know. So that is exciting. I love it. Yes, definitely, that is a mom move. Absolutely.
So my favorite Christmas cookie is, it's a pretty basic cookie, but kind of modified to be kind of specific to my family. My parents, their first initials are both M. So M&Ms are like our family candy. And when I was a kid, our property had a bunch of pecan trees on it. So we always had like pecans in the house. So at Christmas, sometimes my mom will make it's basically the Toll House chocolate chip cookie recipe, but instead of chocolate chips and walnuts, she does red and green M&Ms and pecans. So that's the Thomas Christmas cookie.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so sweet. And it has I love the M&M, like the meaning to it. That is awesome. I love it. That's a great one. Anybody else? All right. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you for going on our World War II cooking adventure. I have another batch that just was done, so that makes me excited. And thank you again to Camilla for all your incredible research and for kind of helping us travel back to wartime and learn about how people were able to still enjoy sweet treats, even during times of military stress and military conflict. So thank you for that. I hope everyone has, no matter what holiday you celebrate, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season. I hope you get some rest. And are just able to enjoy yourselves. And please look out for emails from me in the new year regarding our next program. And I look forward to seeing everybody then. Take care and happy holidays. Bye.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Holidays, thanks. Bye, buddy.